still missing quite a few people, so I'll wait a few minutes. Um, so again, we're going to look at what is sustainability as far as the practices are concerned. Uh, we are looking to wrap this up tomorrow. And that's the unit. We're wrapping the unit up by tomorrow. The project is still not due until the end of the month. So we want to be able to test the unit. I see you guys on Mondays. So we're going to finish up tomorrow, test the unit on Monday. Wednesday is Earth Day, and I have an Earth Day activity for you to do, and it touches on sustainability. But it also looks at your role as young people and as far as the future of sustainability. So that's what we're going to do next Wednesday. And that's going to have an activity that'll take a day or two to work on. But it is in recognition of Earth Day. Earth Day is always the 22nd of April. And again, the objective is that when you finish, you will be a better global citizen. Alrighty. I got almost everybody in. So because it's Wednesday, it's a short class, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So again, we're talking about sustainability. And we're going to look at two short videos today looking at agents of sustainability.
What is sustainability? One of the more common definitions of sustainability used worldwide is from the UN Brundtland Commission. They say sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So put simply, sustainability is about our kids and our grandkids. How do we live today so that they can thrive and future generations can also have a good life? Our planet has many resources that we depend on for food, for housing, and many of those resources can replenish. You can cut down a tree and grow new trees. You can catch fish and there will be more fish. But that only works if you do it at a rate that these systems can replenish. We call that the replacement rate. You could think of it as a bathtub, and you're draining the bathtub and filling the bathtub at the same rate. And if you do that, then the level of the water should be able to stay stable. We call that equilibrium. It's not that you're not using any resources, you are, but you're doing it at a rate that the systems are able to stay somewhat steady. Right now, and over the past few decades, what we're seeing is that we are consuming resources much faster than the replacement rate. And the result of that, draining the bathtub faster than filling it, is that those levels are going down. We're seeing fisheries disappearing and other ocean life. We're seeing forests disappearing. Of course, everyone is familiar with the impacts of climate change and, other impacts of this level of consumption, plastics in the ocean, all of these problems. So ultimately, sustainability is about understanding how all of this is connected, understanding that when you make a decision to buy a smartphone, you are impacting someone's life on the other side of the planet who's involved in mining the materials to put in that smartphone. So sustainability is about systems thinking. One of the other big frameworks that we use to talk about sustainability is the 3 E's. In business, we call that the triple bottom line. Some people call it the 3 legs of the stool. And that's environment, economy, and equity. And it's not just about understanding that we need to manage all of those. It's understanding how they're connected. So if you only look at short-term economic profit, then you're not going to end up with a thriving economy in the long term. If you're only looking at conserving the environment without thinking about economics and understanding, how people are making their livelihood, you also may not end up with a thriving society. And if you aren't looking at equity, you're going to end up with a few people that have most of the resources and many people who are hungry and not living a good life. And that's not really a successful human society either. So sustainability is really about addressing all of those and understanding the connections between them.
Okay, hold on. Okay, whoops. We're back at the beginning of the year. We did the Lorax, and we talked about the tragedy of the commons. Whoops.
Mr. Work Harder, this
That's
video is
not
for
the
you.
one. Yes, it is. That's what we're going to watch next. All right, well, we're going to pause that for a minute. So going back to what she was talking about, if you remember the Lorax, and we did that with Tragedy of the Commons way back at the beginning of the year, and how the one person was trying to just take over everything. And he cut down all the trees and built factories, and he thought it was good for the people, but he was the only one making good on that. And eventually it destroyed the environment. So that's one of the things that we have to create a balance. Is we want people to be in business, we want people to make money, but we don't want it to be at the expense where everybody else loses, except for that one person in business. All right. One of the big topics today is plastics. And then, in fact, after we complete next week, there's a gizmo that deals with plastics. So we're going to look at that later on as well. But today we're going to take a brief look at what plastics are doing to our society. Are they really, really, really renewable? Okay, let me get this thing out the way. I can get it started.
As a pharmacy student, I had one exam at least every 2 weeks, not including labs.
This is the story of 3 plastic bottles, empty and discarded. Their journeys are about to diverge, with outcomes that impact nothing less than the fate of the planet. But they weren't always this way. To understand where these bottles end up, we must first explore their origins. The heroes of our story were conceived in this oil refinery. The plastic in their bodies was formed by chemically bonding oil and gas molecules together to make monomers. In turn, these monomers were bonded into long polymer chains to make plastic, in the form of millions of pellets. Those were melted at manufacturing plants and reformed in molds to create the resilient material that makes up the triplets' bodies. Machines filled the bottles with sweet, bubbly liquid, and they were then wrapped, shipped, bought, opened, consumed, and unceremoniously discarded. And now here they lie, poised at the edge of the unknown. Bottle 1, like hundreds of millions of tons of his plastic brethren, ends up in a landfill. This huge dump expands each day as more trash comes in and continues to take up space. As plastics sit there being compressed amongst layers of other junk, rainwater flows through the waste and absorbs the water-soluble compounds it contains, and some of those are highly toxic. Together, they create a harmful stew called leachate, which can move into groundwater, soil, and streams, poisoning ecosystems and harming wildlife. It can take bottle 1 an agonizing 1,000 years to decompose. Bottle 2's journey is stranger, but unfortunately no happier. He floats on a trickle that reaches a stream that flows into a river, and a river that reaches the ocean. After months lost at sea, he's slowly drawn into a massive vortex where trash accumulates, a place known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Here, the ocean's currents have trapped millions of pieces of plastic debris. This is one of 5 plastic-filled gyres in the world's seas, places where the pollutants turn the water into a cloudy plastic soup. Some animals, like seabirds, get entangled in the mess. They and others mistake the brightly colored plastic bits for food. Plastic makes them feel full when they're not, so they starve to death and pass the toxins from the plastic up the food chain. For example, it's eaten by lanternfish. The lanternfish are eaten by squid. The squid are eaten by tuna, and the tuna are eaten by us. And most plastics don't biodegrade, which means they're destined to break down into smaller and smaller pieces called microplastics, which might rotate in the sea eternally. But Bottle 3 is spared the cruel purgatories of his brothers. A truck brings him to a plant where he and his companions are squeezed flat and compressed into a block. Okay, this sounds pretty bad too, but hang in there. It gets better. The blocks are shredded into tiny pieces, which are washed and melted so they become the raw materials that can be used again. As if by magic, Bottle 3 is now ready to be reborn as something completely new. For this bit of plastic with such humble origins, suddenly, the sky is the limit.
Okay, so something to think about with the plastics. Like I said, plastics have become a big conversation these days, and that's for the next class. That's not for today. Especially as far as what we eat, and a lot of the diseases that we're encountering now are due to the fact that we are ingesting microplastics and our bodies don't know what to do with them. So it's become a great concern. So like I said, there's a gizmo that we're going to do next week after we finish testing and finish our Earth Day activity and finish your project. We'll do a lab on plastics. All right, so for the time being, use the rest of this time to catch up on whatever you need to catch up on. Excuse me. To You can work on your project, work on any assignment that is missing. Progress reports are going to be out on Tuesday, so you want to make sure that anything that needs to be made up is made up before Tuesday. So again, we are going to wrap this unit up on sustainability tomorrow, which means I'll have some review questions for you. And we will test it on Monday is when I see you next. Okay. All right. Any questions about that? So go ahead and finish reading through this if you haven't read through it already, with particular attention to the know before you go. Also, it's always a good thing to look at the vocabulary and the initial questions at the beginning of, all right, you can't see that yet, but we'll talk about that next week. That's our Earth Day project. Again, go through and read the rest of this unit. We'll talk about it tomorrow. That's your project. Again, if you have any questions about the project, please ask. It's not due until April 30th. You want to make sure that you answer all the questions. And the last thing is actually a poster. This question here, I asked that you do it in chart form. So make columns for these questions so that you're answering these things in chart form. For this one, whatever environmental issue is one of your choice, whatever you choose, put it there. And then all of these questions go with whatever issue you choose. And from whatever issue you choose, make a poster or infographic or slide presentation. I think all of that is the same thing. Don't do a video and don't do a social media campaign. Okay, so your visual needs to align itself with whatever environmental issue you select. Okay. And then complete your reflection. and submit. So, but that again, that's not due till the 30th. If you have something else that's due, please do that first. Again, please ask questions if there's something that you're not clear about. All right, so again, when I make the test, I always make it with the overview questions. So if you're reviewing, make sure that you go back and review this introduction page. That's what we'll do tomorrow. Don't go anywhere because I haven't done attendance yet. Some of y'all log out too soon. Some of you log in and then don't do anything. Please make sure you do something. Use class time for classwork. Get it done by next Tuesday, so your progress report doesn't show that you have done nothing. Most of you need to work on your Chattahoochee River wars. Please make sure you get that submitted. I may, even though the UN and the youth is available to you, don't work on that right now. That's part of the Earth Day assignment. So I made it available, but we're actually going to look at that later. Plus, I'm not sure that I have to make sure that the link for that is open for you all to look at. So I don't wish to do that today. But if you can get into it, it's for something that for Earth Day. That is our Earth Day project. We'll do that after the test. Again, if you have finished everything already, work on your project, on the sustainability project. Like I said, there's quite a few of you who have not done the Chattahoochee River Wars. So make sure you get that because that's due. Don't worry about the global impact. That's going to come later. That's our Earth Day project. So we'll talk about that later. You can look at it if you can. But don't do that if you have other things outstanding. All right, again, please make sure that you've done your 3 pillars of sustainability in Chattahoochee River before you work on anything else. The global impact is for next week, and the sustainability project is for next week. So don't work on those if you haven't finished the other 2 assignments. Get caught up on those. Got quite a few people that owe carbon footprint. And again, with the carbon footprint, make sure that you send me 2 screenshots as well as the answer to the question. Got quite a few people who have not submitted that. Um, Still on the 10th, and that's still open, so I don't have to worry about that one. But open and due dates are 2 different things. It was due on the 10th, so that means that's late. And again, folks, if you use class time to do class work, stuff should not be late. Yes, you can. So the first couple of questions are general questions, and then for once you get to, I think that's what's question number 4, you choose an environmental issue. And then the rest of the project is based on that issue that you choose. You're welcome. Again, folks, if you're not clear, please ask. Yes, let me pull that up again for you all. Just trying. And folks, I'm looking at these Chattahoochee River questions. Question 2 is a detailed question. While you can answer question number 1 by just telling me the states, question 2 and 3 have a little bit of bulk to them. So if you give me a simple answer on that, you're not going to get full credit for that question. Okay. Two is involved. What does everybody want? And to what degree has the situation been resolved is the question. Now, I'm pulling up the project again to share, just to clarify what you need to do with this. All right. Basically, this is a worksheet that you are filling in the answers to. Okay. I'm trying to get this, make sure this is on share screen. So you can just fill in this first part and submit this first part as a worksheet that you've completed. When you get here, this is still the worksheet, so you can complete that on the worksheet. The thing that is going to be separate to that, because this is going to be a picture. So everything up to part 4 can be completed on this worksheet as is. This part is going to be a separate submission in the folder. So that means you're submitting 2 things, the worksheet and the poster. Or if you can find a way to attach the picture to this and it'll be 1 submission, that's fine too. Okay, so is that clear to everybody? Okay. All right, so again, this is, you can stick your answers, find a way to put your answers in the places provided. I would like for this part to be a chart, but if you can't do it as a chart, at least find a way to list these separately. Again, you just pick one environmental issue of your choice, and everything from 4 and 5 go with whatever topic you choose. Okay. All righty. All right, so time to go. I will see you all tomorrow. Have a good one.